Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another High Post event at Collective. Happy to be here. And I'm with my friend Alan Mak.
Yes.
Who I'm actually just meeting in person for the first time.
COVID friends.
COVID friends, yeah. We meet each other online and we've been back and forth. Through another friend of mine, Dawi Chow, introduced me to Alan as he is a part of this company,
Yep.
Version Tomorrow.
Founder.
I bought a bunch of blanks from this company because they do fabrics that are more responsible than the average stuff. So I did a little collection on that last year, and Alan was gracious enough to come down and talk to us about why it's important to extend the life of your clothing. What's good? Alan, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I'd like to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
And then we'll take questions from folks, you know, if you have something to ask. What do you do?
What do? I do a whole lot of things, but my primary day job is I'm the founder of Version Tomorrow. Version Tomorrow, it's an enablement platform really for brands and creators of any kind, big or small, to be able to make sustainable goods without having to build supply chains, without having to do R&D. So it's really just a streamlined way for creators to be able to get into that space, because it's hard. It's hard doing that, and I think for you, as I'm sure you've seen, being a creator, to try to find really high quality and responsible, whether it be blanks or whether it be other goods, it's a hard task, and it's one of those things that people tell me, pretty much every single day. It's like they're like, I've been looking for a really high quality hoodie. I've been looking for a really high quality t-shirt, but I can't find one, right? And I think right now when we think about sustainability or when we think about more environmentally responsible apparel, oftentimes what happens is people think there has to be a compromise, right? There's got to be a compromise in terms of like how it feels. Does it feel like burlap or is it soft, right? Is the quality good or is it shitty type of thing? But yeah, I mean, that's the whole entire thing with Version Tomorrow is when we created Version Tomorrow, the whole entire idea was how do we create something that's better for the environment, better for workers, without having any compromises?
Well, that seems to be part of the explanation. I was going to ask you, please explain sustainability, because it's a word. It's not an everyday word. Folks that know and are extending efforts to be such know about it. But I just came into understanding how much waste the fashion industry drops on the earth. And it's kind of amazing. So tell us, just explain sustainability and the efforts toward.
Yeah, I think when I think about sustainability, I don't really think of it. I don't think of Version Tomorrow as being a sustainable company. And the reason for that is because when we think about sustainability, it's really about what you take from the earth, you got to give back, right? And for what I'm doing with Version Tomorrow, and with a lot of companies, what they're doing is they're taking from the earth, but how do we give back, right? And Version Tomorrow doesn't give back to the earth. What we do is, or I like to call us being more environmentally responsible. And what that means is we are taking from the earth, but we're taking in a much more considered way and at a different pace than traditional companies take, right? Certainly there are sustainable companies that are out there, but in terms of what we do, I don't think that we are that. But I think it's really important for us to have that distinction, because I think especially within the fashion space, there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on. And when I say greenwashing, what that means is people are claiming that they're something that they're really not, right? And sort of within this sort of sustainability space, you've got a lot of companies saying, we're sustainable. And oftentimes what that means is you'll hear them brag about, we diverted 40 plastic bottles from landfill because we combined it with organic cotton to make this hoodie. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you haven't diverted any plastic bottles from landfill. What you've done, you've delayed when those plastic bottles go to landfill, right? By combining it with organic cotton, what you've done is you've contaminated the organic cotton by mixing it with plastic bottles. You've contaminated the plastic bottle stream by putting organic cotton into it. So what do you have left at the end of the day? Like when that hoodie is at its end of life, where can it go? One place for it to go. It goes to landfill, right? So when I say that Version Tomorrow is more environmentally responsible, really what that means is we put together Version Tomorrow with the idea that, well, we got to be better for the planet. We don't want plastic in what we do, right? So Virgin tomorrow, it's a blend of recycled cotton and organic cotton. So we refer to that as something being a monofiber. Monofiber meaning one, right? So we are one component, and that's cotton. The beautiful thing about cotton is that it's biodegradable, and you can mechanically recycle it using existing means that aren't, just stuff that's in a lab. I think oftentimes you'll hear companies say, oh, they can be recycled using, all these different esoteric means. Well, if it's something that's in the lab, we don't know if it's actually going to scale. And if something doesn't scale, then how do you really have impact, right? So with Virgin tomorrow, what we really wanted to do was figure out from a material side, how do we make something in a monomaterial that's biodegradable? Because look, I said that we can mechanically recycle our goods, right? But what if people don't do that? What if they just decide, I'm just going to throw it out? And if you just throw something out that's fully cotton, it can biodegrade. If you throw something out that's plastic, it doesn't biodegrade. What it does is it becomes smaller and smaller bits of plastic, which become microplastics. And I'm sure you've heard all the statistics. Probably everyone in here has heard the statistics. We're eating the equivalent of one credit card worth of plastic every single week. So that's a lot of plastic, right? And I'm sure it's like, you probably all heard the stories about Teflon and like all those chemicals that go into your body that cause cancer and stuff like that. So as far as I'm concerned, plastic comes from oil.
Right.
It's a petroleum-based product. That stuff's not good for you. It's just not, right? So how do we strip away all that stuff, and how do we go and make something that's just better for our bodies, right? We talk about eating organic foods, right? And why do we do that? Because it's better. Less pesticides, less chemicals, all that kind of good stuff. But when it comes to fabrications, it's the same sort of things. But on top of that, when we think about, because sometimes people will say, well, what's the difference between what you're doing with Virgin tomorrow and regular cotton? Big difference is when we use recycled cotton, there's no additional water that's being put in to grow that crop, right? Because recycled cotton, by nature, it already exists. And the cotton that we're using, if we didn't use it, it goes to landfill. So we're taking something that's waste, that's honestly trash, and we're combining it with organic cotton. And why do we use organic cotton? Because when you use organic cotton versus conventional cotton, you take down the amount of water that's being used to grow that crop, right? So what we've done is twofold. We've improved water usage by using recycled cotton, improved it using organic cotton. So when we think about the total water usage that's being reduced, by using our fabrication, we've reduced water usage by upwards of 91% in comparison to conventional cotton.
How many gallons of water does it take to make a t-shirt?
2,700 liters of water to make one t-shirt. Now, 2,700 liters of water, what that means is, for the average human, that's equivalent to 2.5 years worth of drinking water for the average human for one t-shirt. That t-shirt that you're wearing, 2.5 years worth of drinking water.
This leads me to my next question. This is big information. It's a lot of information, and it's, as you outline, the responsibility of industry to take a look and be better about it. But what can we do? What can we do as individuals, either as individuals in the market, as consumers, as people just learning about how to be better?
Yep. I think the biggest thing is just really be mindful and be really thoughtful about what it is that you're consuming and the pace at which you consume, right? So I think, within America and with so many countries within the Western world, we're a consumer society. So really what that means is we're constantly chasing hype. We're constantly looking for something new, right? But the reality is do you actually need something new? And oftentimes we go and chase to something new because social media influenced us. Or we buy something and the quality is bad, so we have a much faster replacement cycle. And my belief is if we're able to take things that are really high quality, then we can use it for a really long time. And there's really nothing more sustainable than something that you use for a very long time. And when you go through that very rapid consumption cycle, the problem there is you're buying these new things, and because we're all buying these new things, what do businesses do? What's their incentive? It's to keep on making more and more new things so that you buy more and more new things, right? So you go into any regular store, you go into like Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, or anything like that, right?
AKA
fast fashion, right? And fast fashion in and of itself, I think, Uniqlo products, H&M products, Zara products, in and of themselves, they're not inherently bad. What's bad about it is the rate at which we're consuming these things, right? It's like people oftentimes they ask me, do I consume fast fashion? And I'm really honest about it. I do. I buy my socks, my underwear, and I buy jeans from Uniqlo. You know why? They're cheap and they're really damn good. But when you look at my jeans, all right, like I got a pair of jeans that sit in my closet that I've actually stopped wearing because it's got too many holes in it at this point. But on the side,
you get your worth from these garments.
I get my worth, and I'll tell you what it is. Like, I put my phone in my front pocket over here. This thing went from iPhone 5S, iPhone 6, iPhone 7, all the way up to an iPhone 10. So what I got is these, rectangles of wear on my pants of all differing sizes. But I get my wear out of those things,
Art
right?
by technology.
Yeah.
Okay, insert shameless plug. So that we're sitting in front of this regular people little logo here. This is a collection I put together, which is of a vintage nature. It's repurposed and reworked garments.
Yep, love that.
Picked especially because of the construction and them being many of the garments quite old.
Yep.
But the construction is just different.
Yep.
Stuff is going to be around. It's had a life, and I feel like it's ready for a next life. So
Definitely.
we took some of these garments and made them sexy, and this is my entrance into really trying to produce a collection that is addressing these issues. After my purchase of your goods, that was a step in the right direction. But the more I've learned, the more I want to be doing the right thing. So not sure where this goes, but I'm happy to be able to say I'm doing my part.
Yep, I think it's a really important step, right? And just like I said before, there's nothing more sustainable than having things that last, right? And keeping garments in circulation for as long as possible, that's sort of the holy grail there. So even when I think about Virgin Tomorrow, it's like what we've built is a garment that lasts. But I say, well, the stuff is recyclable. I don't want anyone to sort of mistake what I mean by that. When I say it's recyclable, I don't want that to be the first step. Really what I want is if there's a hole that develops in a Virgin Tomorrow garment, I want you to fix it. I want you to do mend and repair, right? Because mend and repair, honestly, it's not that hard. But number two, it consumes far less energy and far less carbon than mechanically recycling a Virgin Tomorrow t-shirt and making new yarn and making new fabric out of it. So, for most of the stuff that I buy these days, it's like people sometimes ask me, oh, you're in the fashion industry, where do you shop? eBay and Facebook Marketplace. That's where I shop.
I feel, I'm not sure what I was going to say about that, but it brings to mind, I'm not even going to go there. I wanted to ask you, what else is being done by other folks other companies, other efforts to address this and be better?
I think, certainly a lot of companies are in this space right now and they're thinking about these problems because they're big.
The spotlight is on.
The spotlight's on, consumers are demanding it. But one of the things that I fear with all of this stuff is, I've been in the fashion business for a long time. I grew up in the industry, but I've been officially doing it for 20 years now. And, I always say, as fashion companies, we're all kind of stupid sometimes because we all wear a lot of hats, right? And fashion industry is a really fragmented industry. So you've got thousands of companies kind of all doing the same thing, right? So you see it with fashion companies where the person who's in charge of buying the buttons, chances are they're also in charge of HR, also in charge of updating website copy. I don't know about you, but I can't do so many things that are in such different sort of ways really well. Right. And I'm seeing that now within, the so-called sustainability space where I think a lot of companies are looking at this and saying, well, that they think it's winner take all. I don't believe that it's winner take all because I think that the problem is so big that really what we need to do is really focus on what we're really great at and concentrate on that. So even with what I'm doing, it's like, I know how to produce goods really well. I know supply chain really well. And, there's so many aspects to, when we talk about environmental responsibility within the fashion space. You know, people doing take-back programs, people recycling garments, spinning into new yarns and stuff like that. People ask, is that something that you're going to do with Virgin Tomorrow? And I tell them, I'm not going to do that because there's so many other companies that are innovating in that space that already have done it. They've become experts at it. So I'm not going to step into that space. Just the same as I hope that they don't try to step into my space because they're not going to be as good as I am in doing what I do. So, you know, the big thing is we hear about this all the time where fashion companies, they're all talking about take-back programs where they're saying, when that shirt reaches its end of life, you can send it back to us and we'll turn it into something new. We'll figure out a responsible way to get rid of it, right? Well, we offer a take-back program with Virgin Tomorrow, but we don't power it. And the reason why is because we've partnered with companies that are really great at it. And take-back is hard. It's reverse logistics. You know, it's like, how do you gather up all these sort of garments? How do you sort the things and make sense out of it? That's not where my expertise is. But other companies, they have expertise there, so let's lean on them. And I just think within this overall fashion space, if we can just sort of take that step back and look at each other as allies rather than competitors, then we're gonna figure out how to crack the nut.
That you say that, I want to ask, where are we going? What's next for us, and what's next for you?
You mean as humans?
as contributors or consumers or participants in this trip, because whether we admit it or not, we're all down, you know. So I've said, you know, if I don't play my part to a degree, my grandkids won't have playgrounds.
Sure.
You know, space gets eaten up, you know, with waste and commerce and, you know, the building of other places to create more commerce.
Yep. I mean, it's real, right? Global warming is one of those things, like you and I talked earlier, right, about things that they talked about when we were kids.
It's here.
It's here.
It's been here.
The proof is here, right? I grew up in New York my entire life. And I remember as a kid, yeah, it would be hot in the summer. You know, everyone knows hot New York summer. It's humid and everything like that. But never did we have these flash floods like we have now. Never did we have these really, you know, high-powered winds that we've got now. And, you know, I don't know about you, but it's like every single time that we have one of these storms, it's like you see the video clips of the subways being flooded, right? Where it's just like a waterfall coming down the stairs. That never happened when I was a kid, right? The high winds and everything like that, that shit never happened. Where it was like, now it comes to a point where it's like, I'm afraid that a tree is gonna fall through my house because the winds are so strong. That never happened, right? We look at what's going on the West Coast. This drought,
yeah, I just...
it's bad.
I live
it's
there
real.
now. I came from triple-digit
Yep.
heat, and this part of the year has never seen that before.
Yeah, definitely. It's like
It's nuts hot, and
Yeah.
it's kind of unbearable. It's
Yeah.
nice to come out and get... And I never say this. This is never...
come to New York for the summer where it's cooler.
This is never refreshing, you know, but compared to what is in LA, it was crazy.
Look, my best friend from college, I remember, you know, all the time he'd be like, oh, you should come out to Lake Powell with us. Parents have a houseboat, you should come out and everything like that. This year I called him up, I'm like, because I saw some of the news reports about, you know, how low the water levels were. I was like, you still going out to Lake Powell? He's like, I don't know, there might not be enough there might not be enough water in the lake. And this is one of those things where it's like, you see the pictures now where, you know, you can see like, you know, like in like a dirty bathtub, like where the rings are and stuff like that. It's like out west where these rivers were, you can see where these rings of where the water was at a certain point, right? And you've probably heard about all these reports, how they're finding like sunken ships that have popped up out of the water. They're finding, you know, remains of humans that have popped up out of the water. Because there's no more water covering this stuff.
Right.
So global warming is real, and you know we're feeling it now. And I just think that people have to sort of wake up to this idea and think about, to your point, what is our individual role in all this stuff, and what can we do about it?
Well, whether we want to admit it or not, we all have a responsibility. So, simply said, we must do our part.
Yep. On every level.
On every level.
Yep. Not just fashion. You know, food is one of those big things where we got to think about what is it that we're consuming, right? How much are we wasting when it comes to food, right? Are we composting? Like that's a small little step is composting, because even when you have food, right, and you throw it into your regular trash stream and it goes into a landfill, that produces methane. Methane is many times more intensive of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But if we compost our leftover food or food scraps and stuff like that, that turns into nutrients for soil. That's giving back to the earth.
Well, that sounds like a big ship to turn, but necessary.
Yep.
So I figure if nothing but small sessions like this provide some awareness, and we can maybe start making a few moves here and there. So if everybody in this room made a move in that direction, it makes the world a slightly better place.
Definitely.
At this point, I want to offer, or rather open it up to questions, concerns, anything you'd like to ask myself or Alan, preferably Alan.
What would you recommend to start with?
I think oftentimes when people talk about sustainability, right, or talk about what can we do for the environment, people are so quick to want to go from 0 to 100, right? And I think even within the fashion space, I hear it a lot where brands say, hey, I want to be sustainable, or I want to be more responsible with what it is that I'm doing. But they're scared and they're paralyzed because they're worried about, if they go from 0 to 5, they're worried about people calling them out saying, what about the remaining 95? When are you going to get there? Well, as far as I'm concerned, halfway decent at math, 5 is better than 0, right? So let's get to the 5 first. And after we get to the 5, we get to the 10. After we get to the 10, we get to the 50. But we got to start somewhere, right? And in terms of what to start with, it's like, there's so many things that we can all do, right? And I'm not going to be one to be like, don't drive a car, you got to bike and walk everywhere, right? That's not real. So even in terms of clothing, it's like we got to be realistic about what it is that we're doing. But certainly, it's like if we can break this cycle of overconsumption, that to me doesn't seem so hard to do, right? But yeah, I mean, and when I say overconsumption, I don't just mean in terms of like food, I mean in terms of clothing, I mean just in terms of like so many different things that we do. We overconsume as a society. It's like when we go out and throw our trash out, right? It's like how much food gets thrown into there? Like when we go to a restaurant, their portion size are really big. You're thinking you're getting a lot of value for your money. So you're like, I'm gonna get a doggy bag. What happens to that doggy bag? It sits in your fridge, right? It sits in your fridge for 3 days and you're like, I'm not eating that anymore.
Right.
So it's like, why do we need such big portion sizes with some of this stuff? It's like, let's just be realistic about what it is that we actually need, and let's consume what we need.
And that's another waste of doggy bag.
Exactly. Yep. Chances are that doggy bag is plastic, right, or something that's like plastic lined, right? Yeah. Styrofoam, definitely. Look, it's everything, right? And even when we think about recycling, it's like recycling rates are painfully low for so many things, especially on plastic. And part of the reason why the recycling rates are low is because it's so expensive to recycle plastic that it's just so much cheaper just to use virgin plastic. But that can't be the answer. Yeah.
To recycle a plastic bottle properly, there's 3 plastics on the bottle. There's the bottle, there's the plastic label, and there's the cap. So for this to be done properly, all these things would have to be separate and run through different processes. Show me the company that's doing that, and that's the company I want to invest in, because that's somebody doing it right. But nobody's doing it.
It's hard.
It's a lot. It's
hard. It's expensive
to recycle appropriately.
Yep. I believe there's more awareness to it now. So because there is more awareness, people are taking action.
Definitely.
For example, I don't litter. I do my best not to litter. Although I put a bunch of junk in here, I do my best to not litter. And by me not doing it, I recommend others for doing it, and then it's like a chain reaction. They start to.
Sure.
So it takes just one person to just.
No, definitely. And I think the more that we talk about it, right, the better that it is. And I don't mean to just be like sort of lecturing people about it, but
it's important.
It's important
to be said, and somebody has to say it.
Yep, definitely.
Otherwise, everyone's just going to keep going about their lives, just not knowing
Yep.
what they're not doing.
Definitely.
That's the worst.
Yep, 100%.
I don't think we see it as a lecture. I think we see it as useful information.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to tell people, old Chinese grandmas are like the OG environmentalists, because I remember when I was a kid, I go to my grandma's house, and I don't know how old everyone in here is, but like we drank like that Tropicana out of the glass bottle, right? And that glass bottle was always sitting there with boiled water, like sort of like lukewarm water, room temperature water, sitting on the counter in my grandparents' house. And it was always that same bottle, right? And even to this day, it's like when I get glass jars and stuff like that, I reuse them to like hold different stuff. So it's like, I don't got to recycle it. I'm doing it in my own house.
Right. Things
Right?
taste better in glass. We can all agree.
Exactly. Yep. Everyone knows it's like Coke in a glass bottle, many, many times better than Coke in a plastic bottle. Yep.
Yeah, my grandma takes the plastic butter containers and puts soup in it.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Although those plastics aren't good, but she's repurposed.
Look, it's you got to repurpose it. I do the same thing. It's like sometimes I like to cook, and different takeout containers and stuff like that. Instead of using like mixing bowls, I'll use like those takeout containers to do all that stuff. Yeah.
It's helpful.
Yep. Definitely.
Can you talk about like how being socially responsible and minimalism go together? Like the lifestyle of minimalism, because like I think that with overconsumption, right, and the fast-paced market and just instant gratification, there's this replay or like this kind of perpetual cycle of grab and go and just kind of disposing things, and now we don't have plastic bags.
Yep.
There's the push on carrying your food and carrying your produce and
Yep.
bringing your stuff home.
Yep.
Can you talk about how that plays into our lives today, and what the transition is with that going on?
Look, I think it's about valuing stuff that we actually buy and consume, right? And with consumer culture the way that it is, with fast fashion, it's led people to not value things that they own. I like old stuff because old stuff has a history to it, right? It's like I like old watches, I like old cars, I like old clothing because they have stories, they have history to it. There's a patina to it, right? It's like there's no patina in new stuff. There's no soul in it. And I like soul when it comes to stuff. And when we start to value things in a different kind of way, then that takes away from like what it is that you need to buy in terms of newness. And when I say that I like to get stuff on eBay and Facebook Marketplace, like that's the reason. It's because it's had a history, it's had a story, and it has a soul to it. And I still have stuff from like my dad and stuff like that. Like I've got some old clothing that my dad wore when he was in his 20s and 30s, and that's stuff that I'm not going to throw away, right? It's like watches that I wear. It's like these are hand-me-downs from my grandfather. Like I remember as a kid, like seeing my dad's dad in Hong Kong, and I would see him only like once or twice a year at Max. He would never come here. He was always there, but he had this old Rolex Air King from the 60s. Loved that damn watch, right? And one day he gave it to me. And it's one of those things that I just cherish. And yeah, I mean, if we start to think about things and value those things that we own, it's like, then we don't really need as much. Yeah. And when we think about sort of what it is that we need, there are very few things in life that we need. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be it's funny, it's a funny thought, because like sometimes people think that we need to go and get another loved one, something to match with us, instead of passing it down.
Sure.
Right? So that they can enjoy it. Sometimes it's a weird thought to think that like two people need to have the same thing versus like
sure.
just trying to treat one thing of
Yep.
value.
Yep. But look,
Have that shared kind of
but
connection
even
with
when,
the object.
even when we think about that kind of stuff, right? It's like material things or our experiences worth more. And to me, experiences are worth a lot, right? Travel to me is one of those things. It's like when you travel, that enriches who you are. Buying a new hoodie, I don't know if that really enriches who you are.
I was talking to Kels behind this camera that you can't see, and I was telling him I had a great evening last night. Sort of wrapped it up and dragged myself back to the hotel. And two groups of friends who don't know each other were hanging with me, and we were on the roof. And over a couple of six-packs and conversation with the city in the background, which is like, that's something right where I want to be. I said it was so good of a night, I didn't take a picture. You know, we were just living it,
Yeah.
you know. And I was like, I gotta get a picture because these people aren't gonna see each other again, you
Yeah.
know. But it was so good. It was,
Yep. It's
We
like
didn't-
going
we
to
didn't take a pic,
It's
yeah.
like going to concerts, right?
Right.
And when we go to concerts now,
you're gonna tape it or you're gonna live it. you know?
everyone's got their phone up, right? I don't have my phone up.
Right.
I'm just watching it,
Taking it in.
right? Yeah.
Gentleman in the back. What's up, Odie? What's up, Mike?
What's going on? I apologize, I came pretty late, but I understand the conversation about environmentalism, that I guess the healthy practices and mother
Yep.
Earth, right?
Just being considerate of the planet.
I'm a huge recycler.
Yep.
I recycle everything.
Yep.
Anything plastic or paper, I'm like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yep.
But how effective is the recycling? Is recycling actually, as far as I guess that industry?
It depends. It really varies from place to place, right? And certain municipalities have the ability to recycle a lot. And there's other ones that don't.
Right.
And that's sort of the challenge, right? Where it's like, there's no laws against what materials can be used to produce takeout containers, right? And every single takeout container comes with a little recycling symbol on it. And it comes with a little number on in the middle of it. But just because it's got that symbol and just because it has that number, doesn't mean that it can actually be recycled, because it depends on the municipality, right? So, you know, oftentimes, you know, there's this term called wish cycling. And what that means is, because we see that, because we know that this item should be recycled, we put it in a recycle bin. But if it can't be recycled, what you've actually done is contaminated the rest of the recycling stream, which is pretty damn terrible, right? Because in your mind, you're thinking, well, I see this bit of plastic, I'm gonna put it in the recycling bin, right? Or people, like, one of the things that I saw, I think it was like last year, people were trying to recycle Christmas lights, right? Big string of Christmas lights, you know, 100 lights on it type of a thing, and you're thinking, oh, it's got metal on it, I should recycle it. You know what it actually does? It completely messes up the recycling machinery, because all it does is get tangled in the thing. So you screwed it up by putting Christmas lights in there. Your intentions were good, but you screwed it up, right? Because not every single place can make any sense of Christmas lights. Same thing as like paper, right? People think, oh, we can recycle paper. You know what though? It's got to be of a minimum size. So like, let's just say you take like a stack of papers and you shred it. That paper can't be recycled anymore because it's too small. So, you know, it's one of those things that, like, that's wish cycling. When you pour that whole entire thing out of your shredder into the recycle bin thinking, I'm going to recycle it. You just especially if, like, you mix it with, like, you know, Coke bottle, Coke can, beer can, and stuff like that. It's all mixed in there thinking, oh, everything in here is recyclable.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's not anymore.
How are like coffee cup, like the little plastic pieces you have on top of
Yep.
you drink coffee in the morning, you have a little plastic.
Yep.
Is that recyclable?
It depends on your municipality.
If I could inject,
Yeah.
like nationally, actually, recycling plastic is a myth because it just
Yes.
gets shredded
Yep.
into little tiny pieces and gets put in the landfills,
Yeah.
which are really hot.
It's
So
because
plastic
it's super cheap.
Never,
Yeah.
ever is getting recycled.
Yeah. It's
Ever.
too expensive. Yeah.
You cannot get rid of it.
In the water,
You cannot get
Yeah.
rid of plastic.
Yeah.
They shred it into tiny bits.
And it becomes
which
microplastics.
goes
Into the groundwater.
heated landfills.
and just
Never goes away. So like the idea of recycling plastic is a 100% myth
Yeah.
nationally,
Yeah.
possibly worldwide.
Yeah, it's because it's so cheap to produce virgin plastic that it just doesn't make sense economically.
You just can't
Yeah.
get rid of plastic. Same like you can't.
Yes, no, without a doubt, and that's the thing. Is like I think I read a statistic where it said in order for the carbon footprint for one of those tote bags to sort of be at a neutral level, I think you have to use it like 10,000 times or something like that.
You know what's really
Yeah.
interesting? The word carbon footprint comes from
Oil
ExxonMobil.
companies. Yep.
So just the idea
Yes.
that like the average human being has a carbon footprint is
It's created
actually
by them.
a myth.
It's created by
Because
them
the
because they're
amount
pushing the
of,
burden
like,
onto you. Yep.
Pollution that the American military and
100%.
and multinational corporations
Yeah.
like put on the earth
Mhm.
is
Yep.
fractions of what any human
Look,
being can do. If every single human being in the entire world like drove like an electric car, still is not
Doesn't
going
move
to
the
do
needle.
anything.
Yeah, doesn't move the needle. Look, I see it. When you go into like an office building, right? And you look at like the trash area in an office building, and you see like how much paper is in there. Like there have been times I look at that, it's like a day's worth of paper is many months worth of paper at my own home. So then sometimes you look at it and you're like, what I'm doing doesn't move the needle. Is it even worth doing it?
I mean, it's always,
Yeah.
I think, worth, trying to
I think
change
it's
your
always
eating
worth,
habits,
yes.
trying to do anything you
Yeah.
can, of course.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's
But I can
think
see,
it's
but I can
always
see
important
people.
to be just aware of like the words like carbon footprint and
Yes.
where they come from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the idea of how much pollution corporations and the American military
Yeah.
industrial
definitely.
complex
Yeah.
put out into the world.
No, without a doubt.
But I definitely love and respect everything that you guys are saying. And
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I submit this to everybody in the room and anybody listening, seeing this. How about in your household, you try 3 new things that address these efforts? And I just think that's the change that has to start. The change we wish to see starts, in your own kitchen, your own bedroom, your own habits.
Yeah.
So before all this, I'm asking Alan, would you like anything, a coffee or something? You want a shot? He's like, I'll take a water. So I give him this bottle of plastic, and I'm looking at Romello and I said, we gotta get some boxed water or something. Like, we're about to talk about sustainability. I'm giving this dude plastic, So, it's not an excuse, but this is what's available.
Yeah.
So we have to go far and wide to find better food because most of the food on shelves and what is available sucks.
It's
Okay,
killing us,
it's
right?
not trustworthy.
Yeah.
When I go out of the country, I lose weight eating well.
Yeah.
I come back and eat small portions, and I just want more grease and more grease. It's very strange, when all the fibers are removed from food, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So, suffice to say, we have to change some habits. Thank you, Alan, for your
Absolutely.
information
Thanks for
and
having
your
me.
time. Thank you, everybody. Ja.
That's painful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Amazing.